You noble diggers, all stand up now.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to my channel. Today we will be talking about Solzhenitsyn and Jordan Peterson. This is a response video, as promised yesterday, to a question from a commenter, which was, what do I think about Solzhenitsyn, is what I thought the question was about. And then I had to reread it yesterday morning, and I realized that the question is more precisely about what is Jordan Peterson's role in society, right? And so I read, probably 1,300 pages of Solzhenitsyn yesterday for no reason, but, we'll try and make some use of it. Solzhenitsyn he's an idiot, right? He's a propaganda tool. He's a CIA asset, right? There is one Western academic authority right now in the world on Joseph Stalin.
Are attributable to Stalin's anti-Semitism, to his paranoia, to his desire to accrue power. Was he going after revisionists, all of the above, or something else? And something else.
Yeah, so, Stalin was not more anti-Semitic than was the average for the time period. So anti-Semitism explains nothing. You can't call Stalin an anti-Semite unless you call the average person who lived in the former Russian Empire and the Soviet Union an anti-Semite. Was Stalin paranoid? That's the easiest possible explanation. Right? Sick in the head, paranoid. One of the great things about Hitler was that when Stalin murdered his officer corps, Hitler said, "This guy's sick in the head." Yeah, that's right. Hitler said that. Yeah, that's just priceless, right? You can't invent that. That's better than anything a novelist could make up. So the paranoia is the easy way out, but I don't think is the proper explanation. Because Stalin remains completely functional and is conducting state affairs and is making a whole lot of interesting, rational decisions from my point of view during the same time period as he's doing this terror stuff. As far as, going after the old Bolsheviks and all of that, the literature long ago showed that that wasn't the case. The so-called old Bolsheviks, those who joined the party before 1917, died at about the same rate as everyone else in the party. In other words, they were not victimized more than other groups were victimized.
And he works for the Reagan Institute, right? He does talks for them all the time. So this is a capitalist, a libertarian thinker, and over and over again, he has dispelled all of the myths surrounding Stalin, right? There was no genocide in the Ukraine. The gulags are overblown. He was not a dictator. He was more like the captain of the team, as the CIA reported in the 50s. I have trouble dealing seriously with questions about Stalinist era stuff because I assume right away that you're like operating on cocoa melon, right? That you have no idea what you're talking about, that you are so propagandized that I need to start from basics, right? And it's tough, right? Because I come off as condescending, but I'm just frustrated, right? Because I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation. The day in the life of Ivan Denisovich is stupid. It's a long book. It's ridiculous. It's it's fiction, right? None of these claims can be backed up, right? And then but that's how Hakim argues, right? That he says that all these claims are just that, claims, and then also, look what the good the Soviet Union did, right? I am going to take a different tact. I am going to say, I want you to imagine, where is Ivan Denisovich's place in the hierarchy of the Soviet Union, right? This is not a classless society. It's trying to become one, right? So where is he in this society? He's near the bottom. He's an idiot, right? He's a worker. It's what it is, right? The pyramid is, I can't change the pyramid. We can make it tighter. We can make it less brutal towards the bottom. But yeah, that's where he is. He's towards the bottom. Now, I want you to do another mental exercise. find a counterpart for Denisovich in the West, right? Who would he be, right? Is he a black from Jim Crow era South, right? Pre-civil rights era South? Is he a Guatemalan being harassed by CIA right-wing reactionaries? Is he a Spanish peasant that's being harassed for trying to unionize under Francoist Spain? Is he an Italian communist who was brutally butchered and killed by CIA reactionaries, right? There is no competition between which system kills more people every year, right? Capitalism kills 20 million people every year. So laugh in the face of anybody who has the gall to say that socialism kills more, right? Any system of governance is going to kill, right? We are governing here, and governance is an exercise in double bookkeeping accounting, but all the lines are etched in blood and not ink, right? And so you can lessen suffering, you can lessen death by significant portions, right? But to eliminate it, you know, we are only human to err, right? And then finally, I wanted to leave with an example before turning to Peterson, of course, about Solzhenitsyn, right? Could you find a contemporary person who plays the same role as Solzhenitsyn, right? It's Yeonmi Park.
Here it would take like 1 hour to go the other place. In North, it take a month at least to go because there's no electricity, and sometimes people have to push the train.
They have to push the train.
Yeah, yeah.
Why the fuck you lying?
Lying and lying and lying and lying. So that's who these people are. They have a financial interest to lie to the American upper crust, right? Say, oh, they're so barbaric and terrible over there, right? So dismiss them out of hand, right? I was going to give you numbers, but I feel like people get poisoned by numbers, right? 16 million people passed through the gulags between 1930 and 1953 when Stalin died, and about 1.6 million people succumbed to disease and malnutrition and the like, right? He was trying to reorganize a feudal society into one that could beat the Nazis, right? And then into an industrial superpower that reaches space. What he tried to accomplish was not for the faint of heart, right? It was not for a hippie. It was not for a liberal. He's a serious man. He was trying to liberate all of his people from the slavery of bread, from the toil of misery, right? And he made huge strides in that direction, right? So I don't want to hear it about Joseph Stalin. I'm not a Stalinist. I'm not a Marxist-Leninist, but, you know, I am objective in my viewing of reality, and he did better than everyone else around him. Okay, here we move into Peterson, and I want to include 2 movie clips here because I feel like the movie clips express through culture what I'm trying to get across better than I can, right? And I'm going to show a paradox, right? It is both of these things are true at one time, right? At one time, the central intelligence agencies, the people who rule society, are so powerful that this scene from The Godfather is in fact true.
My youngest son was forced to leave this country because of this Solzhenitsyn business. All right, I have to make arrangements to bring him back here safely, clear of all these false charges. But I'm a superstitious man, and if some unlucky accident should befall him, if he should get shot in the head by a police officer, or if he should hang himself in his jail cell, or if he's struck by a bolt of lightning, then I'm going to blame some of the people in this room. And that I do not forgive.
That these people are so powerful that anything that happens, that goes ahead, that actually takes place, right? You have to believe that somebody in power okayed it, right? And that's why Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, right? But on the other hand, despite all this control, despite all this power that these people have, they're just men, right? And as far as they can see, they can't see into the minutiae of reality. There is chaos at work as well.
It's the essence of chaos.
I'm still not clear on chaos.
It simply deals with predictability in complex systems. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park you get rain instead of sunshine.
Why?
And did I go too fast? I go too fast. I did a flyby. No, give me that big glass of water. We're going to conduct an experiment. It should be still. The car's bouncing up and down, but that's okay. It's just an example. Now, put your hand flat like a hieroglyphic. Now, let's say a drop of water falls in your hand. Which way is the drop going to roll off? Of which finger, or over the thumb, or the other side?
Thumb. It's a...
Okay.
Right.
Okay, now freeze your hand. Don't move. I'm going to do the same thing. Start with the same place again. Which way is it going to roll off, do you think?
Let's say back. Same way.
Same way. Same back. Same way. It changed. Why? Because tiny variations, the orientation of the hairs on your hands.
Hey, Ellen, look at this.
The amount of blood distending your vessels.
As these ordering minds, right? These cynical minds of nobility, or the upper crust of the rich. So who is Jordan Peterson? If you remember where he came from, he got internet famous for misinterpreting a law, for being unable to read as a professor what a law said that he thought would force his speech to give preferred pronouns to his students at U of T. And since then, he has tried to rise on his fame based off his incoherent ramblings surrounding mostly Nietzsche and Jung. There are probably few people on this earth who know Nietzsche better than me, right? But Jung's an idiot. Jung is just babbling. He's a moron. Dismiss him out of hand. Freud's got lots to teach you, right? But also Freud is insane and babbling sometimes. So keep the best, leave the rest. But there is no best in Jung. He's just babbling. It's just nonsense. But Peterson's continued success cannot just be from these babblings about Jung and Nietzsche. It has to be more, right? And I believe he's a CIA asset, right? He's got this continued success. He's got this Teflon kind of thing about him. He has all these scandals, continued scandals, and seems to continue on. So I wanted to talk about, what do you know about what an intelligence asset really is, right? And to do this, we don't know what the CIA calls their assets, right? But we do know the levels of the Russian assets. And the Russian assets are Russians, right? If they have this many levels, imagine how many levels the Anglos have, right? There are probably, 15 levels with 3 sub-levels each of what an intelligence asset counts as, right? So there are legals, right? Full members, ethnic Russians, right? Part of the FSB or the GRU, right? And then there are non-legals, right? Who could be ethnic Russians, usually are ethnic Russians, but are operating under cover stories and deep secret. But they're below the full members, right? Which is interesting, even though you would think that the deep cover people are the most important, right? But that's how they are hierarchized. And perhaps there are deep cover people who are over their full membership cousins, right? But as a rule, they are not, right? There are agents and sources, right? Someone in another government who comes into contact with a Russian agent regularly that could give information that might be helpful, right? An engineer, or, someone like that. An agent of influence. Tucker Carlson is the Russians' agent of influence, right? He gets talking points. He repeats their talking points. I'm sure he has a handler. He probably doesn't know them, but he has one. And then there are agents of unwitting influence. Tim Pool, right? Tim Pool taking $1 million or whatever from a Belgian financier who turns out to be Russian, right? Unwitting. The beanie is cooking his head. From one bald brother to another. You look ridiculous. Take it off. And then there are tech or cyber assets, right? Which are people that you can manipulate. Meme pages are probably the mainstay of this at this point. But there are, coders and architects and things like that that were probably also tech and cyber assets. And then finally, there are cutouts and intermediaries, right? Which are probably mostly Russians and Russian-aligned people who are not tied to the company, right? Like the CIA calls it. Actually, I think the CIA just calls it company because you can't put the in front of God. They're so fucked up. They so need to be all prescripted. They're all traitors, right? Every single member of the CIA. But these cutout intermediaries act as the go-between, and that's the lowest level of intelligence asset, right? What is Jordan Peterson's role, right? Who is Jordan Peterson, right? The comment says he's controlled opposition, right? This just makes me angry. Controlled opposition means that they think that there is some kind of Jewish conspiracy that foists this moron, this fucking buffoon, to the heights that he has reached, right? To run like a psyop on what would otherwise be this well-organized fascist machine, right? And it's just wish fulfillment, wish casting, right? I hate to break this to you, but the fascists have always been buffoons. They've always been artists who LARP as civil engineers and planners and leaders, right? There is not a competent bone that you could present out of the Nazi hierarchy, right? Not of the Nazis themselves. You could probably point to the military somewhere, Guderian or something like that. But yeah, not once, not ever has there been not one competent Nazi, right? They all overreach. They all overbelieve in themselves. They all have fantastical thinking about morale and their folk myths, the myths of their peoples. And yeah, so Jordan Peterson doesn't need some mystical explanation. There doesn't need to be some cabal that's controlling him. Occam's razor will do, right? The simplest, oh wait, Hanlon's razor. No, Occam's razor. Simplest explanation will do. Hanlon's is never assume evil when stupidity will do. Actually, both will do here then, won't they, right? Because the simplest explanation is he's a moron, and so are you people, right? And that you people eat up his moron stuff. No one needs to push this. No one needs to advance it, right? Not very hard. Sure, there's no resistance from the power centers that, coagulate around the Norman core, around the WASP elite, right? So there is probably evidence of people of Jewish descent who are in media or finance who have given him a pass, right? I'm sure you can come up with something like that. But then so did those WASPs, so did those Anglos, right? And for years, only recently did the Commonwealth of His Majesty start to react poorly to him, right? And that is from a liberal perspective. It's not because Jews decided it or something like that. That's crazy. It's nonsense. And all they did was take away his license to practice psychology, right? And it was more to protect their interests than to destroy his, right? So what we have here are a system of stupid rules advancing stupid people, right? That there are always these unintelligent, these fraudsters, these hucksters who are trying to teach you spirituality, and they have no idea, right? If God was to speak to you, right, as Jordan Peterson wishes that we would all try and speak to God, I am certain, I don't believe in God, but I'm certain that if an all-knowing and all-powerful being was to reach down from the sky and touch your mind, right, I'm certain that they would have the prescience, the forethought to say, this is our little secret. This is between us, right? So these Nazis, these fascists are delusional. They're liars. They're crazy, right? And now you're confused that a delusional, crying loser is one of their champions, you are ignoring evidence to fit your narrative, right? You are creating complex tales to explain simple mechanisms, right? You are imagining demons out of people, right? Even if Jewish people are smarter than the average person, which I believe, right, because of their attachment to the Torah over the last couple millennia, make them illiterate people, which probably gives them up to a 10 or 20 IQ point bonus on average, right? But then we just have math to rely on, right? The Jewish people are 15 million people worldwide, right? There are more Brits. The Brits could produce more geniuses just on numbers than that, right? Let alone the Americans or the Russians or the Chinese, who have more geniuses than there are people in America, right? So to believe that they pulled the wool over everyone and all these systems fail, these systems that hate each other, right? The Russian fascists, the Chinese communists, the American, I don't even know what to call them anymore, pugilists, triumphalists, chauvinists. Chauvinist is not bad. But all these systems hate each other. They all would seek to destroy each other if there was this evidence, right? And it would be to the advantage of China to show that there is this weakness within the American or Western elite, right? That they are beholden to Israeli or Jewish influence, right? But I say again that this genocide, and now us cutting loose the Israelis, this dramatic shift in opinion on Israel over the last year, it's like an 80% swing, was designed, right? It is time for the Christian Zionists to cut the Israelis loose, right? Because they have done the damage that they need. They have stopped the development of the rest of the world while the Americans reached the information age, so that they could, like Malthusians, sit on a pyramid of skulls, right? A throne of skulls, because that's how they see the future. They don't see us producing more food and power and more for everybody. They see limited resources to share, a pie that must be cut certain ways, right? Yeah, I guess I would just say you should try and fight your own debate. You know, you should try and fight your own points, because this is unserious, right? It's a distraction. It's ridiculous. And not only that, but what if you got your way? What if we were to turn fascist, right? We were to become, you know, not beholden to liberal or whatever influences you think we have, right? The death, the destruction, the mayhem, the work hours a week, right? Communists want everyone fed, and white nationalists want everyone else to be dead and white people to work 80 hours a week, right? You can't even recognize your own interest, and you're talking to me about international conspiracies? I have to be rude about it. I have to be like, you're a moron, right? Because that's the only way that I can beat this out of you. I can't just be like, oh, we disagree, it's reasonable, right? I don't just disagree with a climate change denier. I mock them. They're beneath me, right? And same with these anti-Semites. Have a nice day. Hello, you've made it to the end of the video. Thank you. This channel has one mission: to prevent civilizational collapse associated with climate change, to prevent 100 million refugees by 2035, to stop 7 billion from starving to death by 2075. And we will do this through one main vehicle. We mean to unite the Anglosphere. We will do this by convincing the Commonwealth of His Majesty King Charles III to apply for statehood as one. And then with this new power, we will be able to negotiate in good faith with the rest of the world on how to tackle this crisis. Thank you and enjoy.